Arado 234 Blitz was the world's first operational turbojet-powered bomber. It saw service during the final months of the Second World War. The Arado 234 was produced only in small numbers despite plans for production of 500 per month by late 1945. This was partly due to a lack of available jet engines and other critical materials for which the aircraft had to compete with other types such as the Messerschmitt Me-262 jet fighter. Several models were proposed with alternative engines, cockpit improvements, and adaptations for other roles. For example, the Arado 234 became the last Luftwaffe aircraft to overfly the United Kingdom during the war in April of 1945. In its capacity as a bomber, the most prominent use of the aircraft was the repeated attempts to destroy the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen in March of 1945. The Arado 234B2 was the first production version of the aircraft, but the decision was quickly made to curtail its production. The Junkers UMO-004 jet engines turned out to be too weak for the aircraft. With a full bomb load, it became necessary to use launching rocket boosters, which in combat conditions significantly hampered the operation of these machines. Therefore, it was decided to abandon the production of the B2 version in favor of the next one, which received the designation Arado 234C. This version was equipped with 4 lighter BMW 003 engines mounted in a pair of twin-engine nacelles. The fuselage was taken unchanged from the B2 version. The 4 BMW jet engines improved top speed by about 20% over the B-series airframes. According to the calculations, the aircraft was supposed to reach a speed of 882 km per hour at an altitude of 4,000 meters. But the range dropped to only 550 kilometers. The primary reason for this switch was to free up the Junkers UMO-004 engines for the Messerschmitt Me-262 jet fighter. The new C-1 was intended for reconnaissance, the C-2 for bombing, and the C-3 for ground attack using anti-personnel bombs. During October of 1944, the prototype Arado 234C V-19 performed its first flight. Although an operational test squadron was being prepared, only 14 C-series airframes were completed by the end of the war, with fewer than half had engines. In the last year of the war, the Luftwaffe wanted to use the Arado 234C for another task. It would have served as a mothership for a unique jet fighter. The Arado E.381 Kleinstjäger, or smallest fighter, was a proposed Parasite fighter aircraft. Designed in December of 1944, the E-381 was to have been carried aloft by and launched from an Arado 234C mother aircraft. It would then have activated its rocket engine, which would have propelled it to attack Allied bombers. The first version had a circular cross-section fuselage with a small round window in the nose for the pilot's vision. Overall, the entire fuselage was protected by a 5mm armored shell. The pilot lay in a prone position, but the cockpit was very cramped. The aircraft could only be entered from a hatch above the cockpit, so the pilot had to enter the jet fighter before the aircraft could be attached to the carrier and had no way to escape in case of an emergency. The second version was very similar to the first version. The overall dimensions were enlarged slightly, but the basic layout remained the same. Landing was accomplished by means of a built-in landing skid and the same drag parachute, and the same means of entering and exiting the second version remained from the first version. With the third design, the overall dimensions were again enlarged slightly, but instead of a single Mk108 30mm cannon, the third version was armed with 6 rockets fired from the wing leading edges. The tail unit was redesigned to sit slightly higher than the fuselage, and the fin and rudders changed to a simpler rectangular shape. Landing was the same as the first two versions via a retractable landing skid and drag parachute. The problem of entering and exiting the jet fighter was solved by adding a side opening hatch on the starboard side of the forward fuselage. Because the E.381 was so small and simple, the carrier aircraft provided heating, electrical, and telephone links to the jet fighter. The telephone link was used to tell the pilot of the fighter to help make necessary trim changes. Once the coupled aircraft was carried aloft, it was released at a height of 1,000 meters above the enemy bomber formation. It would then make its approach in a shallow, high-speed dive, reaching a speed of 820 km per hour, where an initial attack would take place. The small Walter rocket engine would be ignited for a second attack pass, and then the aircraft would begin a long diving glide back to the ground. Upon landing, using its built-in landing skid and braking parachute, the fighter could be easily dismantled into wing, fuselage, and tail unit. Pieces light enough to be handled manually and then loaded into a simple truck. It was estimated that it would take 600 man-hours to work to produce the new jet fighter. A mock-up was built, and several unpowered wooden airframes was also set to be constructed, and it is even rumored that a single unmanned prototype was tested by being towed aloft. But no powered examples were ever built or flown. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and to make sure you don't miss my future work, please make sure you are subscribed to my channel and press the bell notification button. Thank you, and see you in the next video.